Hi everyone, Lexi here. So, Octopath Traveler 0 got a massive info drop today by Square Enix, and I wanted to talk about them because Octopath Traveler is one of my favorite series of all time at this point, and I want to talk about the information that I gathered from these three sources. So, I actually got to play Octopath Traveler 0 at PAX West a few weeks ago. So, if you want to check out that coverage, be sure to check out the link in the description of this video. So I can tell you right now that these three websites don't have any spoilers whatsoever. But I will caution you that this one, which is the Gematsu article, does have descriptions of the characters. If you're the kind of person who thinks that's a spoiler, don't worry, the chapter markers will be there for you so that you can skip through it and not miss the other features that are actually revealed afterwards. Anyways, we have a lot to cover, so let's just get right into it. By the way, thank you to Gematsu, Stealth 40k, and Inverse for all of this information. So this Cliff Notes is actually translated from Automaton Media, and this came from an interview with producer Suzuki, and he mentions that the number of enemies and bosses is incredible, which kind of imply that maybe what they did was they took the enemies from Octopath Traveler 1 and Octopath Traveler 2 and they kind of mushed them together into one game. If so, that would be an incredibly huge monster list. And if you actually stick around for the Gematsu article, we're going to be talking about why that's important. There's going to be 30 to 40% of the main scenario that's new. Now, this isn't a surprise. We kind of knew that this isn't just a port of the mobile game. In fact, there's not going to be any gacha, so it's not even a straight port. They would have to basically rebalance everything so that it works as a traditional RPG, and we'll get to that later. But what's really cool is that the fact that they decided to add that much content in this game, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine that a lot of that stuff is going to be the city building stuff, the new storyline that they built for the game, and from what I played, I really enjoyed what they were trying to do with it, and I really can't wait to get my hands on it. The side quests and party chat are new to this game, because if you can imagine, you don't want these sorts of things to kind of slow down your progression in the mobile game. So it's natural for them to kind of add these in to maybe help the leveling process, right? Which to me is kind of cool that, again, there's this attention to detail that the developers really put into this game, because while it's easy to think that this game could just easily be ported and whatnot, there's actually a lot of thought that goes into it. And again, we're actually going to go over that in the interview later. The voiced character dialogue is new. From what I remember from the mobile game, I think it only had Japanese voice acting, and now it actually has English voice acting. This is something that I experienced during my PAX West preview, and I actually played a clip of the voice acting, which it's pretty much on par with the rest of the Octopath Traveler series, which is great. And of course, we've heard about this in August. It's going to have 100+ hour playtime, with the producer essentially adding that players won't get bored. So, as you all know, Octopath Traveler 0 is set in the same world as Octopath Traveler 1, and we've seen that the Octopath Traveler crew from the first game are playable. And it's not a surprise also that it was revealed that there are two storylines here, which is a storyline of revenge, which was from the mobile game, and a story of restoration, which is built around the city building. So this image right here is of Pardis III, ruler of all. Square Enix describes him as the tyrannical monarch plotting to seize control of Ostera, and your companions will stand against his ambitions alongside you. It's really weird too, because Square Enix also made mention of the unique facilities that you get, but I think that's more of a general kind of teaser for the rest of this press release. The article continues to talk about King Pardis III as the absolute monarch who rules the kingdom of Edoras, with wealth, power, and fame all at his command. His insatiable greed knows no bounds, and he initiates an invasion to seize Ostera in its entirety. The embers of war scatter and spread across several nations, igniting countless tragedies. Can you, Ringbearer Chosen, shatter the tyrannical monarch's ambitions? The greed of the master of all looms over the land of Ostera. Square Enix also revealed some of your new companions, like Pius, voiced by Todd Haberkorn in English, whose job is a cleric. Pius is a bishop of the Order of the Sacred Flame, a distant relative of the protagonist's mother, who showed them great kindness when they were a child. He now hopes to return the favor. His ultimate technique is the Scales of Justice. This ultimate technique lowers physical and elemental defense of all the foes and raises physical elemental attacks of all allies for several turns. This character is Shirsa, voiced by Brianna Knickerbocker in English, and her job is a dancer. Shirsa is a traveling dancer who has unique artistic tastes. She possesses extraordinary vocal talent and seeks a partner who shares her sensibilities and can join her on stage. Her ultimate technique is called Ruinous Aria. It grants an ally the ability to exploit weaknesses regardless of weak points for several turns. This is Corinda, voiced by Erica Mendez in English, and her job is Merchant. Corinda is a merchant who grew up in a small village on the outskirts of the Riverlands. She worms her way into people's hearts with her warmth and friendliness and uses her great business sense to ensure she never misses an opportunity to make some leaves. Her ultimate technique is called the Trick of the Trade, and this raises physical attack of all allies for several turns and grants them the ability to dodge physical attacks for one time. This is Zerk, voiced by Adam Korenman in English, and his job is a scholar. Kern? Zerk. Not even close. Zerk is a scholar who researches soulstones and is regarded as an eccentric within academic circles. His talented assistant is attempting to gather funds so that he can study a gargantuan soulstone. His ultimate technique is called the Soulstone's Might. This attack basically deals fire, ice, lightning, wind, light, dark damage to all foes for one time each. This article also talks about the town building, and specifically some of the new facilities that they wanted to reveal, like this monster arena. This is one of the reasons why I told you earlier that the number of monsters in this game is going to be important, because the monster arena can be built by progressing through your adventure, which will unlock the monster capture list and arena matches to face off against your captive monsters. You can also complete capture requests and win matches to earn various rewards. There's also going to be a museum, and you'll be able to relish in the music obtained from musical scores throughout your journey, as well as revisit those adventurous memories through journals, and proudly display treasures of legend rumored to lie dormant in locations still undiscovered. Wishvale's background music is also customizable, so gather your favorite music scores and configure its tune to your liking. But seems like this is tied to the museum itself, so if you want to do all that, you have to build the museum. So in this interview, one of the things that the developers really wanted to say first is that the mobile experience and the home console experience is going to be completely different, meaning they've removed the gacha, but it's not enough to just do that, because really, like, if you think about gacha, or if you played any games with gacha, a lot of the gameplay revolves around that. So if you strip that away, you need to find a logical way, for example, to get new party members. So how does that happen, right? Because normally that's where the gacha would come in. So this part is very interesting because it talks about the origins of Octopath Traveler 0, because not a lot of mobile games get actually ported into a full-priced product. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't think this game is full-priced either. So I just quickly checked, and Octopath Traveler 0 is going to be $50. Not 60, not 70, 50, which to me, like, already, like, that seems like a really good price for something like this. So the question was, when did the idea of Octopath Traveler 0 come around? Was the project always meant to use elements of Champions of the Continent, or did it start as something else? Suzuki says, both Kidera and I were involved in the development of Champions of the Continent, and even back then, it was a game where the concept was wanting to build the experience that originally existed on consoles to mobile players as well. So Actually, since the time of Champions of the Continent was live in operation, we've always had the thought of wanting to bring that experience back to console too, especially as we saw feedback from fans strongly wishing to see that happen. So this is interesting that the fans actually wanted to experience the game separate from the gacha. Probably not the first time, but I mean, this is really nice of them to actually even think about it in this way. That said, when we thought about bringing this latest installment to the world, it's true that Champions of the Continent was a game that was live for a long time, and because of that, there was a large number of people who were playing the game. We felt that it was really important to ensure we were introducing new features to this game, for example, the town building, and making sure we were redesigning the story itself too, so that as many people as possible would be able to pick up this game and give it a try. I really like this because from the foundation, the developers have pretty much said, we're going to take elements of this, but we can't just transfer it wholesale into the console version because the tuning is going to be different. It's not tuned for a gacha game, because when you're tuning for a gacha game, you want people to spend money through the gacha, right? But what if that aspect of the game is completely stripped? Well, the balance is going to be completely different. The villains were a huge part of Champions of the Continent story, and if I remember correctly, there were like 3 main villains, and I think they exist here as well. And I know you've significantly expanded the overall narrative. Has this allowed you to make the villains richer? And I'm pretty sure by richer, they don't mean like in terms of money. When it comes to the depth of the villains, I feel that overall they appear in this game with new thematic components being added. Specifically, what that means is this game adds major new story content to both the beginning and the ending of the experience. Within that, when the story kicks off essentially, is when the village the player is peacefully living in is absolutely decimated and destroyed. That's actually where you start the mobile version, when the whole town is destroyed and now you have to seek vengeance. From there, they had the option to pursue 2 stories that progress in parallel. The more restoration-focused story, or a story that's more focused on revenge, where the villains in particular play a much larger role. So this is pretty much confirming what I thought, where there's going to be like 2 storylines that are running concurrently. One is the city building storyline with the restoration, and the other one is essentially the mobile game storyline, which from what little I played of it, I really liked it. As you know, the bosses stand against the player and the protagonist, and things kind of reach a point toward the end of the story where you kind of start to see more things that might unfold. And I don't really want to share too much information, spoiler, of course. So this is interesting because essentially what he's saying is that while you start the game with 2 different paths, you start with one or the other, they kind of merge together, they intertwine with one another. So they become kind of crucial to the experience, which implies that you want to play 2 progressions at the same time, which to me is like, wow, like I have a tough enough time trying to go through 1 progression. Now 2? That's kind of crazy in a good way. So what's also interesting about this part is that the concept of the town building kind of came from the fact that like they wanted a contrast to the vengeance storyline that the mobile game pretty much introduced. And so in a way, the town building storyline, the restoration storyline, if you will, to use their terminology, is you feeling like you're a hero for rebuilding the town, recruiting new party members that are probably going to contribute to the town in some meaningful fashion. To me, that's really freaking awesome. And I think what's also interesting about this part of the interview is that they mentioned that town building is not common in RPGs, although, of course, we old school people know that ActRaiser did that quite a while ago. So the town building aspect, they wanted everybody to be able to approach it, but they also don't want people to get stuck in it, that their progression through the game was going to be stunted. And so they kind of had to balance out the town building aspect so that way it doesn't really interfere too much with the main story progression for restoration. And by the way, I just want to say it is so cool that you can actually like meet people and then invite them to your town. It is just really awesome. So this part of the interview talks about how you can recruit more than 30 characters. And with 30 characters, like, how can you guarantee that every single character is unique? And I think what's cool about this is they kind of talk about how they really wanted to make sure they were providing variety in a lot of diverse ways. And also have a variety of ways to meet them and recruit them. For example, they talk about meeting a character at a tavern and they kind of consult you about wanting your help on something. And maybe later they'll join your crew. Or perhaps after using a path action, which they do have in this game as well, they might become your party member. Or something unexpected might suddenly unfold as an event in the game, which triggers them joining. And then, of course, there's the traditional format where the story progresses naturally, and because of the plot, they'll just join your team. So in this section, they're talking about the combat, the 8-person combat. And from what I remember from my gameplay at PAX West, it really forces you to be more strategic with your characters, because now a lot of the enemies, especially bosses, are going to have ridiculously high amounts of shields they're going to have to break through. And before you dread that, anybody who is in the back row will automatically get 1 point, 1 BP at the end of the turn of the character in front of them, which to me is great because that's a really easy way to build up that boost meter. So what basically happens is you're forced to tag people in the back and the front repeatedly so that you're taking advantage of those BP boosts that happen in every turn. And balancing that with boss battles is really tricky, let me tell you, because it is a very different way of playing this game. In fact, it is so different that I feel like it's the single thing in the combat that differentiates it between all the other Octopath Travelers and Bravely Default as well. This is actually a really good question because the interviewer asked if Octopath Traveler 0 is a way to immortalize a mobile game that's no longer in service. I kind of want to see what they say. As you touched upon, when it comes to taking a mobile game and then turning it into a single-player RPG or console game, it was actually a very difficult process because the overall design and the way the experience is built is completely different. So even when it comes to the overall design or level designs, we essentially had to build things from scratch. And it really felt like we were rebuilding this game from the ground up. Kidera actually said something very interesting here. This is something Suzuki-san mentioned, but especially when it comes to battle, it's true that we built this game from zero, in a sense, literally. One thing that was true when it came to the mobile experience, or for mobile fans specifically, is that it was one where, rather than engaging with the gameplay in a literal sense, because of the format, you inevitably had to be on your phone screen for a very, very long time. So, especially with this game, as we were thinking about bringing this to console, one thing we wanted to redesign was the turn-based element. It was a great opportunity to rethink it. So what did I get from all of this stuff? Well, there's a lot of excitement because now they're actually talking about some of the city building elements, which is great. I love the monster arena, that's shades of Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. And of course, Final Fantasy VI. And I love that the developers really didn't just say, hey, let's just cut and paste a mobile game and make it into a console game. I mean, this is such a thoughtful way to make a mobile game kind of work in a different way than the original that honestly, for the $50 that they're asking for, I am proud to support this game as much as I can because as you all know, I'm a huge Octopath Traveler fan. I love the series, especially Part 2. It's my game of the year of 2023. And it seems like this game is trying to boldly go where no mobile game has gone before. Maybe there's one or two that I can think of, but you get my drift, especially for RPGs. I'm really excited for the new characters. The English voice acting, if you've watched that PAX West preview, absolutely stunning and amazing, much like the previous two games. And to me, this is another Octopath Traveler that we can look forward to. And honestly, I think we're going to start hearing more about this game soon, the closer we get to December 4th. Octopath Traveler 0 launches on December 4th on modern PlayStation platforms, Xbox Series X and S, both Nintendo Switches, and PC. Now, I want to hear what you think. What's the most exciting part of Octopath Traveler 0 for you? Post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.